Nutcello, beautiful humans. So, I've been thinking about grief lately. Might be confusing that I want to talk about grief, but I've got a smile on my face, and I'll explain that shortly. But effectively, the nutshell is that I've recently been super grateful for the experience of grief, as painful and as bizarre and as confusing as it can be. Yeah, I'm actually really grateful for it. The lessons are transformative, and many, many, many of them, and they keep coming. And literally last night, it was keeping me awake. I had a question posed to me in a book, really, really great book. It's called Consciousness Medicine by Francois Bozat. And it's a fantastic book for anyone interested in exploring expanded states of consciousness, especially within the context of psychedelics, medicine, plant medicines, in the ceremonial and therapeutic setting. So I'll put a link below for that book. And one of the questions in that book was, when in your life did you feel most loved? And the answer came to me instantly, which was bizarre. I as I was reading it, the metacognition was, geez, I'm gonna have to think about that one. But it didn't. I didn't have to think about it. Immediately it came to me. And it was the day my dad died, which was even more bizarre, that just was posed to me with absolute clarity. Wow. And then I was sort of went back to that moment in my mind, in my memory, in my body. And I remember it was so profound, receiving the news that my dad had passed on, and simultaneously feeling this this tidal wave of sadness and confusion, frustration, anger. But in there as well was this massive, massive wave of love. And I didn't really truly understand just how much and just how unconditionally my dad loved me and my brother until he passed on. And it was the most profound and eye-opening experience. Or in an instant, literally in an instant. And there were more doorways opened on that journey in the days and weeks and months that have followed. But in that instant, it was just like a switch was flicked. And all of a sudden, I looked back on all of the ways in which I felt frustrated about my relationship with my father, which I'm just going to go ahead and guess it's not a unique case with me, and that we all feel ways in which we are frustrated with our parents. So I believe that's part of being human. And all of the ways in which I was frustrated with him, I felt like, I wish he understood me better. I wish I understood him better. I wish he didn't make this mistake, or whatever it was, you name it. And in a heartbeat, all of those just switched to, oh my God, the amount of love that man carved out just for me is beyond words. All of those mistakes, and I recognize now he's a human being figuring things out one day at a time. Yeah. He had kids one day, and from that day onwards, his journey of figuring things out through life also entailed figuring out how to dad while supporting two kids and living his life. And so many of these ways in which I felt he'd let me down, quote unquote. And I feel no guilt or shame about this now. Like I said, I'm good with this. I know there was no judgment of my dad. I didn't hate on him. It was simply the confused longing for things to be a certain way from an immature and spiritually underdeveloped mind. And that's all right. It's all good. I'm a work in progress. So are you. So I realized in this moment, like, wow, so many instances that to me, from my side, was, that should have been different. That could have been different. And in that heartbeat of knowing that he's no longer there, somehow it just alchemized and transmuted without me really having to do anything. In fact, the only doing was letting go of my perceptions as to how things should have been or how I wanted that relationship to be. And all of a sudden it was alchemized into, wow, how hard that man tried. Wow. My God. The daily constant, perpetual, never-ending care and love and support, and his heart always being open no matter what. And I recognize this now, and man, that fills me with so much love. It is truly profound. So, yeah, in the most bizarre way, I've never felt so connected to and in love with my father as I do now since he's dead. Wild, truly wild. And in grief, it's a gift. I remember people coming back into my life who I had lost touch with purely because they wished to express their care for me in a time of need, in a time of peak challenging emotion. And in that way, my dad's death continues to be the seed of regrowth of relationships and connection in other ways. And within my own personal journey inwardly, sure, why not inwardly, there we go. I notice patterns of behavior and thought because, of course, great grief is not linear. There are tides and there are waves, and they come and they go. And yeah, as a wise man once said, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And so that is what I'm doing right now, learning how to surf. Could say that about life in general, but I think it applies pretty neatly to grief as I'm experiencing it. And I notice, and it again is a gift, these waves of emotion, these very challenging, painful emotions, that they are happening. Whether I like them or not, it's happening. And I notice, even though I am a mindfulness teacher, even though I am a coach, even though I maintain a daily practice of personal and spiritual growth and self-reflection through meditation and journaling and the responsible use of psychedelics, and working with a therapist and working with my own coach and so on, these behavior patterns still dig in. And so I've recently been on this merry-go-round of attachments and this merry-go-round of attempts to distract from the pain. And that's totally natural. Totally natural. It's like a survival mechanism. Why would I want to be in pain? Of course I don't want to be in pain. And yet I find myself hopping, leapfrogging from, now I am experiencing really strong urges to just snack constantly, eat like crappy, shitty foods that I know are going to ruin my gut health and give me cravings for more shit food. Okay, well, that's not very helpful. And then I weed that one out and I realize, like, hey, where'd that come from? All right, come on, let's let that go. And then a few days, maybe a week later, now I've got cravings to play video games and watch porn because that's going to soothe me. Okay, all right. Weed that one out, recognize that's happening, acknowledge that, okay. And then it's binge watching Netflix, or it's wanting to drink alcohol even though I don't drink alcohol anymore. You name it. It's just this merry-go-round of attachments and attempts to distract from pain and attempts to soothe myself. And this is just the most wonderful gift. It really is. It's a gift. It is an opportunity for me to continue allowing myself to die, allowing aspects of my separate self-identity to die off so that I may be reborn. And so to die off, to create space for something more beautiful to emerge. You know, I literally have a visualization meditation where I bury parts of myself, the parts that no longer serve me. And I do so compassionately. I recognize that these parts of me needed love and needed to be held, needed to be heard. And they were just desperately attempting to soothe me, soothe the pain. And so I compassionately lay them to rest. And the way I see it is that the body, the bones of those former versions of me, they nourish the earth, and that soil that they are buried in becomes fertile ground for beautiful new growth, a garden to flourish and to thrive. And that's the garden of myself. And in this way, I'm given the gift of tending to the garden of my soul, tending to the garden of my true self, the self that exists beyond the ego-identified separate self. And this is now the big, expanded, infinite self, the same one that is you and that is me and that is this tree I'm sitting under. So it's the most wonderful gift, a gift for catalyzing my inner exploration and self-exploration. And in that way, I then get to be more me for the world. What a wonderful cycle of reciprocity. And the only cost is a little bit of pain every now and again. And of course I miss my dad. Absolutely. I'm not discrediting and saying, oh, I only had to pay for not having a dad anymore. Of course not. But the simple fact is he has passed on. This is my reality. And so I choose to soak up the gifts that are here if I can bring myself to courageously look at this in the eye and not shy away from it. So, grief. I think we should talk more about it. I see there are so many lessons in it, so many opportunities for us to connect with one another. And I think grief, maybe a part of grief, is the perceived ending of a life, or as in my view, the ending of the life cycle of a human body. But it really is the beginning of so much more. It is the opportunity for a whole new doorway to be open for exploration in the self, amongst communities, for wisdom to be shared and received. So I will keep on surfing those waves, trying to learn some shit from them. Beautiful. Have a wonderful day, my friends.